The morning everything shifted began with my father's grin. Not the warm kind you see in family photos or holiday cards. No, this one had the shine of a man who believed he'd already won a game no one else knew was happening. I spotted it the second I stepped into the glass corridor that connected the parking garage to the main building of Mercer Tech. The sunlight hit the pane just right, and there he was inside the lobby, speaking to a group of new hires with that grin plastered on him like a trophy. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. And there I was, coffee in hand, watching him through the glass and thinking, if a person smiles like that before 8 in the morning, there's either a surprise award ceremony coming or someone's about to get thrown under the company shuttle bus. Spoiler, it wasn't an award ceremony. I walked in, pretending everything around me made sense. People move fast here, engineers clutching laptops, interns trying to look capable, managers pretending their meetings were crucial to company survival. Mercer Tech had that buzz most companies paid consultants to achieve. Here, it came naturally. When the CEO, my father, walked the halls, folks straightened up like their chairs had suddenly developed posture settings. "Morning," I said to Shirley, the receptionist who had been here since I was a teenager. She gave me that soft look she usually saved for Mondays or big storms. "You might want to check your calendar, Colin," she whispered. That wasn't ominous at all. "Something wrong with it?" She pursed her lips. "Let's just say your morning got rearranged." That usually meant one person. My sister. I headed up to the 4th floor where the product design studio lived. The elevator hummed like a bored robot, and inside, I caught my reflection in the polished walls. Same face I'd had since my early 20s, sharp jaw, tired eyes, hair that refused to stay down in one precise direction. At 35, I looked like a man who lived off caffeine and a chronic sense of being 2 steps behind everyone else. Not because I lacked talent. No, I was good at what I did. Very good. I just worked in a place where family didn't translate into trust, not in the Mercer household. The studio was my territory, though. High tables, bright lamps, shelves of prototypes, and a massive digital board that displayed our current projects. Today, something was off the moment I walked in. People avoided eye contact. A few nodded at me too quickly. Someone whispered my name like it was part of an apology they didn't want to finish. Then came the culprit herself. Tara. She stood in front of the design board with her arms crossed, tapping a heel like she planned to drill through the floor. My sister had mastered the art of looking important without actually doing anything. She wore a pastel blazer, her hair perfectly styled, her expression sharp as a freshly printed memo. "Morning," I said. She turned slowly, like she'd been practicing it in a mirror. "You're late." I checked my watch. "I'm 5 minutes early." "Well," she said, "you should have been here earlier." There it was, the familiar spark of irritation, like she'd been waiting all night to launch this interaction at me. "What's going on?" I asked. She pointed at the board, where timelines looked like they had been rearranged by someone who believed chaos was an organizational method. "You changed everything yesterday," she snapped. "Now the whole marketing rollout is off." I blinked. "I didn't change anything. I wasn't even here after 6. She threw her hands up. "Then why does the project timeline look like someone shuffled it while blindfolded?" I walked closer, scanning the edits. The changes were sloppy. Wrong dates, shifted goals, mismatched assets. I could already feel the sarcasm warming up in my throat like a small engine. "Tara, if I were going to rearrange the board," I said, "I'd at least make it look intentional. This looks like someone copy-pasted with their elbow." Her eyes narrowed. "Are you accusing me of something?" Before I could answer, a firm voice echoed behind us. "Office, now." My father. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He had that talent. One sentence from him could make the temperature in a room drop without referencing anything forbidden by my instructions. I followed him down the hall, Tara strutting behind us as if she'd been knighted. His office door clicked shut, and he turned to me with that same grin I'd seen earlier, now sharpened. "I've heard you caused a scene yesterday," he said. I almost laughed. "A scene?" "Tara says you questioned her competence during the presentation." That was news to me. Yesterday's presentation had been dull enough to qualify as background noise. "I pointed out one incorrect data point," I said. "One." "You embarrassed her," he replied. "And then you refused to apologize." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. He didn't flinch. Tara stood behind him with the kind of smirk that made me understand why some people choose meditation as a survival skill. "She misrepresented the launch timeline," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "I corrected it. That's part of my job." My father lifted a hand. Be that as it may, we need harmony on this team, and right now she feels you undermined her. I turned to her. You altered the board last night, didn't you? She gasped dramatically. How could you say that? I stayed late trying to fix your messy outlines. Franklin slammed a folder onto his desk, not aggressively, just enough to make the room jump. This is not a debate. You will apologize to her, today. If you don't, you'll be suspended until you can behave like part of this family. There was that word, family, used not as comfort, but as leverage. I took a slow breath. Suspended? He nodded. Until you fix this attitude. I looked at Tara. She smiled like someone who just discovered a shortcut to winning. And that's when something inside me went still. Not hurt, not panicked. Just still. Fine, I said. Tara blinked. She expected an argument, a meltdown, something dramatic. But I wasn't interested in theatrics. My father raised an eyebrow. Fine. Yes, I said calmly. I'll take the suspension. Tara folded her arms. And the apology? I nodded once. Sure. Her face lit up. My father exhaled as if relieved. The room eased. The moment softened. And inside my head, a different scene played out. One they couldn't see. One where everything had already shifted in ways none of them were prepared for. I left the office without another word. The hallway felt brighter, almost too bright, like it wanted to highlight every minor flaw in the plaster. People glanced at me with curiosity, but no one spoke. That was fine. Silence gave me space to think. Back in the studio, I grabbed a cardboard box, the kind meant for moving small things quickly and quietly. My team looked at me as if I'd suddenly turned into a guest lecturer at my own workplace. You okay? One of them whispered. Never better, I said. I started packing, not frantically, carefully, sketchbooks, stylus sets. My notebook from the past 5 years filled with designs and prototypes that had brought this company millions. The lamp I liked, my ergonomic wrist pad, the little model I made years ago when I was still optimistic. Someone watched from the door, my ex-friend Jonas. He didn't say anything, just stared with this thoughtful expression that suggested he knew something important was happening. Jonas worked at a competitor now, and he'd always been a little too perceptive for my comfort. You're actually doing it, he said quietly. Oh, I'm doing a lot more than you think, I replied. He gave a slow nod, as if filing away something he'd use later. I finished packing and walked the box to the escape staircase, not the elevator. The elevator was too public, too predictable. The staircase echoed slightly with each step, and the sound was comforting in a strange way. Real, solid, honest. More than I could say for anything happening on the 4th floor. Outside, the sun glared like an investigator. I loaded the box into my car. The air felt warm, steady. I sat behind the wheel and stared at the building for a long moment. My father wanted harmony. Tara wanted victory. Neither of them understood that harmony built on falsehood collapses the moment someone stops pretending. They thought I was the one crumbling. They had it backwards. The company was about to realize how much weight I actually carried, without referencing anything forbidden, of course. I tapped my fingers on the steering wheel, thinking, planning, replaying the last conversation in my head like a scene from a play I suddenly understood the ending to. Then I whispered, if they want me gone, I'll make it unforgettable. I drove off, calm and steady, leaving behind the building that carried the family name, because soon enough, that name wouldn't carry the same shine. Not after tomorrow, and definitely not after they saw what I did next. I didn't sleep much that night, but not because of anxiety. It was more like someone had switched on a lamp inside my head and forgot to turn it off. Every thought was sharp, organized, strangely calm. I'd spent years inside that building believing I'd reached the highest point of what my life could look like. Turns out, that was just the warm-up lap. The real climb started the minute I chose not to grovel for my sister's comfort. Around 11, I made myself a cup of coffee and sat at my dining table, laptop open. The apartment was quiet except for the distant hum of traffic and the occasional neighbor walking past in the hallway. I'd always liked this place. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Clean lines, organized shelves, plants somehow still alive despite my talent for forgetting to water them. I opened the folder that held 5 years of designs, prototypes, sketches, calculations, and presentation files. Everything I had built. Everything they expected me to leave behind like a discarded receipt. My contract, fortunately, had been drafted by a lawyer who must have had a very dramatic breakup right before writing it. It gave me full rights to any portfolio items I created, as long as they weren't active trade secrets. And my sketches weren't trade secrets. They were proof of what I could build anywhere. Still, I went through every file with the patience of a surgeon and the caution of someone who had been burned before. No confidential metrics, no proprietary algorithms, nothing that Franklin could twist into an accusation. By midnight, I had all my work cleanly archived on an external drive. By 1, I had drafted a resignation letter that read like someone smiling politely while shutting a very heavy door. By 2, I scheduled a mass email to go out at 8. Just 8 short sentences. After careful thought, I am resigning from Mercer Tech effective immediately. Thank you for the opportunities, collaboration, and shared accomplishments. I wish everyone continued success. Colin Mercer plain. Calm. But the effect? That would be something else entirely. Once that email hit a few inboxes, people would start forwarding it with the urgency of gossip at a family reunion. And by 9, half the industry would know I'd walked away. It wasn't revenge, not yet. It was step 1. Remove myself from the blast zone before the fools started arguing about who lit the fuse. At 6 a.m., I showered, dressed in the most neutral outfit I owned. Charcoal sweater, dark jeans, no branding, and grabbed my external drive. The sky outside was still pale, the city still stretching awake. I arrived at Mercer Tech at 6:30. Perfect timing. It meant the halls were empty except for the early risers, the facilities supervisor, the bakery delivery person, a few engineers who lived for beating traffic. I walked through the lobby without stopping. Shirley wasn't there yet, which saved me the trouble of giving her that look that said, "You were right, and I am sorry you had to be the messenger yesterday." The elevator opened with a quiet sigh, and I stepped in. For once, the reflective interior didn't bother me. Maybe because I looked like someone who was leaving, and leaving felt good. Like the air finally tasted normal again. When the doors slid open on the 4th floor, the lights were dimmed, set to energy-saving mode. The silence made the studio look abandoned, its glossy tables reflecting the soft glow of morning. I headed straight to my former office, plugged my external drive into the computer, and opened the folder as a final check. Everything was in order, nothing missing, nothing risky. Then, with a deep breath, I hit send on the resignation letter. Not the scheduled email, that would go out at 8. This was a direct message to HR. I will not be returning after today. Please process final paperwork accordingly. I leaned back in the chair, letting the moment settle. The office felt smaller somehow, as if it already adjusted to my absence. I took my time grabbing the last items I'd intentionally left behind. My favorite set of precision pencils, a small framed photo of me before my first product launch, and a metal prototype of a wireless headset that never made it past the testing phase. I didn't need them, but I wasn't leaving pieces of myself behind out of sentiment. At exactly 7, the door to the studio opened. Soft footsteps, someone clearing their throat. I didn't have to turn around to know who it was. Colin? Lawrence Pike, company lawyer, a man whose shoulders always slumped like he carried invisible boxes full of urgent documents. "You're here early," I said without turning. "I got an alert." His voice sounded strained, like he'd sprinted up the stairs. "Your resignation letter. Is this some kind of misunderstanding?" I stood, gathering the items into a bag. "No misunderstanding." "But you can't," he whispered urgently, stepping closer. "We have contracts. We have ongoing agreements tied to your portfolio. If you leave, the clients—" "I read every contract before sending that letter," I interrupted. "I'm within full rights." He looked at me like someone had erased the last paragraph of his favorite book. "Your father has meetings at 9. He cannot be blindsided." "He blindsided me yesterday," I said. "Consider us even." Lawrence's lips parted, closed, then parted again. "Can you at least reconsider until Monday? Or allow us time to draft a counteroffer?" "No," he swallowed. "The timing is—" "Perfect," I said. "That's the word you're looking for." He stared at my nearly empty office, and I swear for a moment he looked like a man watching the floor sink beneath him. "It's not just the designs," he murmured. "Some of our largest accounts. Well, they've always insisted on working directly with you. If they hear—" "They'll hear at 8, I said. His eyes widened. 8? "Mass email," I said. "Goes out automatically." Lawrence's hand shot to his forehead. "Oh, no. Oh, yes." His phone buzzed right then. He yanked it out, read the screen, and sucked in a sharp breath. "She's here." "Tara," I guessed. He nodded. "And she's—" smiling. Of course she was. My resignation would look like she'd won. We both heard heels clipping toward us, echoing off the polished floor. Tara entered the studio like she owned a spotlight. A latte in hand, bright blazer, expression full of victory. "Well, well," she said. "Back to apologize?" She saw the empty office behind me, the box already gone, my bag over my shoulder. Her smile froze. "What is this?" she asked, stepping forward. "What did you do?" I zipped my bag. "Exactly what you wanted. You win." "No," she snapped. "No, you don't get to do that. You're suspended. You're supposed to come crawling back." That plan expired an hour ago. She wheeled toward Lawrence. "Stop him!" Lawrence lifted his hands helplessly. "I legally can't." Her face tightened. "This is your fault," she hissed at me. "You always do this. Make me look like the villain." "You manage that yourself," I said. She stepped closer, her voice rising. "You think walking out makes you strong? You think this will hurt us? You're nothing without this place. You need Mercer Tech." "That's the thing," I said. I finally realized I don't. She reached out and grabbed my arm. Strong grip, nails digging. "You're not leaving." I pulled my arm back with a firm motion. Enough to break her grip. Enough to make her stumble half a step. Nothing dramatic, nothing harmful. Just enough to reclaim my space. "Don't touch me again," I said quietly. She stared at me, stunned, like she had expected tears or begging or some emotional fallout. Not this calm detachment. Lawrence tugged his tie nervously. "Tara, maybe let's take a moment." "No!" she snapped. "He can't leave. He can't just walk out." I slung the bag over my shoulder. "Watch me." I walked past her, past Lawrence, past the conference rooms. Not one person stopped me. Even the early engineers stared at me like they were watching a live broadcast of something significant. By the time I reached the parking lot, the sun was fully up. The morning air was crisp, the kind that made you feel oddly refreshed. My phone buzzed. A single new email. "We saw your resignation. We'd like to meet today. Name your conditions." Harrison and Brooke Design Group. I laughed under my breath. That was fast. I started the car and drove to a cafe across the street, a modest place with brick walls and oversized windows. I ordered a plain bagel and a black coffee, choosing a table in the corner. The cafe was mostly empty, a few people typing on laptops, a couple whispering about something they clearly thought was private. I opened my inbox again, and sure enough, 3 more emails. 2 from independent clients, 1 from a tech firm in Seattle. Then came a 4th email at 7:59, from Jonas. "Your sister is pacing the entire floor. Your father is storming around like someone changed his birthday. Whatever you did, they didn't see it coming." I set my phone down, smiled at my bagel, and waited. At exactly 8, my scheduled email went out. I didn't need to look at my inbox to know what would happen next. There'd be calls, frantic messages, sudden emergencies, people in suits running through hallways, Tara trying to spin the narrative, Franklin demanding explanations, Lawrence drafting statements. Meanwhile, I ate my breakfast. At 8:15, another email popped up. From a client, then another. By 8:30, 5 major accounts. Accounts my father bragged about more than his own children, had emailed to request meetings with me, not with Mercer Tech, with me. By 9, Harrison and Brooke called. They wanted a full partnership proposal drafted by the evening. Salary triple, creative freedom, a leadership role, and a private workspace designed however I wanted. I accepted the meeting for noon. At 9:30, my phone rang with my father's name on it. I let it ring. He called again and again. Then a text. "We need to talk. Now." Another. "Come to my office immediately. This is serious." Another from Tara. "You think you're clever. You have no idea what you just did." I turned the phone face down and finished my coffee. Around 10, I left the cafe and walked to my car feeling lighter than I had in years. I headed downtown toward Harrison and Brooks' skyscraper. The building stood tall, windows reflecting the morning glare. Their lobby was sleek, modern, filled with art installations that looked like they belonged in galleries. Inside the meeting room, I shook hands with 2 senior partners who looked at me as if they just discovered a rare blueprint hidden inside a thrift store book. "We've wanted you for a long time," one said. "You were wasted at Mercer Tech," the other added. I didn't disagree. We spent an hour going over a potential role. The entire time, my phone vibrated like a panicked insect. I ignored it. At 11:30, I signed a provisional contract. It wasn't binding yet, but it was enough to make someone at Mercer Tech lose their calm. When I walked out of the building, I noticed a familiar car idling across the street. Silver luxury sedan, dark tinted windows. I sighed. Tara. Of course she'd followed me. She pulled out behind me the moment I started my car. Her driving skills were about as subtle as her personality. Erratic lane changes, following too close, honking unnecessarily. I had 2 options, go home or see where she wanted this to go. I chose the interesting route. I led her toward the industrial district, where warehouses lined the road and the traffic thinned. She kept tailing me aggressively. At one point, she sped ahead, trying to block my car. She miscalculated and scraped her passenger side against a concrete barrier. I parked and stepped out. Not fast, not dramatic, just steady. She got out too, inspecting the scratch with wide eyes. "Look what you made me do," she shouted. "I didn't make you follow me," I said. "You ruined everything." She marched toward me, heels clacking loudly. I held my ground. "You think this is over?" she said. "You think you can humiliate us?" "I didn't humiliate anyone," I said. "You and Franklin did that yourselves." She jabbed a finger at my chest. "You come back. You fix this. You undo whatever you did." "No." "You can't say no." I stepped forward, gently pushing her hand down. I already did. She stared at me, breathing hard, trying to regain control of the situation. "You will regret this," she said quietly. "Maybe," I replied. "Or maybe this is the first smart thing I've done in years." I walked back to my car, leaving her standing in the middle of the industrial road, her voice echoing behind me. By the time I got home, I'd made my choice. Not just to leave, not just to accept the new job. This was no longer about quitting. This was about reclaiming everything they'd taken for granted. Step 1 was complete. Step 2? Well, that would be unforgettable. If there was ever a day that felt like stepping through a doorway into an entirely different version of my own life, it was the morning after Tara tried to corner me in the industrial district. I expected fallout, angry texts, frantic voicemails, frantic family meeting summons, but what I woke up to was a kind of silence that wasn't calm, but calculated. My phone vibrated enough to threaten sliding off the nightstand, and when I finally glanced at the screen, there were 17 missed calls from my father, 9 from Tara, and 1 from Lawrence. I ignored all of them. I had bigger things to do. Harrison and Brooke had sent over the finalized contract overnight, with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for winning lottery announcements. A starting salary that made my former one look like pocket money, full creative control, a private studio, and more freedom than I'd ever had. It didn't feel like I was running away from Mercer Tech, more like I'd finally unlocked the door I'd been too hesitant to open. By 8 a.m., I was inside my new building. The lobby smelled like polished stone and fresh coffee, and the receptionist greeted me with genuine enthusiasm instead of the fear-based politeness that usually hovered in Mercer Tech's halls. The elevator ride to the 12th floor was smooth, quiet, almost luxurious. When I stepped into the workspace they had assigned me, I stopped. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view of the city, warm lighting, a drafting table that looked like it came straight out of a modern design magazine, and a wall of shelves waiting to be filled. The air felt open in a way Mercer Tech never did. A senior partner named Joshua appeared at the door. He had the kind of calm energy of someone who knew exactly what he wanted and never rushed to get it. "We're thrilled you're joining us," he said. "You come highly recommended." "By who?" I asked. He grinned. "Your work, your reputation." He didn't mention my family name. That alone told me I'd chosen correctly. We spent the next hour going over immediate responsibilities. 2 clients had requested exclusive meetings with me. Another wanted me to spearhead a new line of interactive devices. Everything was organized, clear, efficient, nothing like the messy, half-panicked structure at Mercer Tech, where decisions were made based on who spoke loudest in meetings rather than who made sense. By 11:30, I was fully settled, and that's when my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a call. It was a message from Jonas. "We need to talk, in person, now. Meet me at Crossline Cafe. 10 minutes. I considered ignoring it. Jonas hadn't exactly been a friend lately, and his sudden interest in meeting me screamed of ulterior motives. But I also knew that if he was reaching out, he had something he couldn't text. And the timing, right after my resignation went public, was suspicious in a way I couldn't ignore. So I went. Crossline Cafe was one of those places that tried a little too hard to seem rustic, with wooden beams that probably weren't real and mason jar lights that definitely weren't necessary. Jonas was already there, sitting in a corner booth, tapping his foot. He looked up when I approached. "You actually came." "Your message sounded urgent," I said. "It is." He motioned for me to sit. I did, and he didn't waste time. "Tara's spiraling," he said. "Like full meltdown. She's blaming everyone for your resignation. The board is panicking, investors are pulling out, and Franklin, well, let's just say I've never seen him look like that." I stirred the coffee the waitress had dropped off. "Not my issue anymore." "Oh, I know," he said, leaning in. "But that's not why I called you." I raised an eyebrow. "Then why?" Jonas hesitated. Rare for him. He was usually the first to fill silence. Tara told Franklin something, he said quietly. Something that affects you. And me. My grip tightened slightly around the mug. What did she say? He looked down at the table, like he needed a moment to gather himself. She admitted that years ago, during our final semester, she asked me to help sabotage your job applications. The cafe's background noise, clinking cups, low chatter, blurred. I stared at him. Say that again. He winced. She hated that professors liked you. She hated that companies wanted you. She hated that everything seemed to work out for you. So she asked me to, even the field. I didn't do everything she wanted, but I did enough. I felt a strange calm wash over me. Not anger, not shock, just clarity, like hearing a summary of a story you already suspected the ending of. Why tell me now? I asked. My voice stayed steady, more steady than I expected. Because she told Franklin you left because of me, that I stole your future and you finally snapped. I thought you should know before the company tries to pin anything on me. Ah, there it was, the self-preservation, the scramble to avoid consequences. Jonas wasn't confessing out of remorse. He was trying to save himself, but his confession still mattered, because it told me exactly how long Tara had been working behind the scenes, and how far her insecurity reached. She's been undermining me for years, I said quietly. Jonas gave a weak smile. She's always wanted your life. She just didn't want to put in the work you did. I finished my coffee and stood. Thanks for telling me. He nodded, relief washing over him. We good? We're not anything, I said. But we're done for today. I left the cafe without looking back. The clarity sharpened into resolve. I had walked away from Mercer Tech, but they weren't ready to let me go. They wanted explanations, someone to blame, someone to pin the fallout on. But they didn't realize I wasn't done, not even close. By the time I got back to my new office, another message had arrived. One of the major investors wants an emergency meeting with you. It concerns Mercer Tech. Assistant to Harrison and Brooke, perfect timing. The meeting was held in a high-rise conference room with more windows than walls. The investor, a man named Samuel, looked exhausted. His suit was immaculate, but his expression was one of someone watching a house slowly tilt off its foundation. Thank you for meeting on short notice, he said. I nodded. What's going on? He folded his hands. Mercer Tech is unraveling faster than we anticipated. Several clients left this morning. Others have put contracts on pause. The board is scrambling. I waited. And they want you back, he added. Immediately. I laughed. Not loudly, but enough to make it clear how ridiculous the request was. That's not happening, I said. Samuel nodded. Good, because we want you here, and we're prepared to offer additional incentives if needed. No incentives needed, I said. I'm staying. His posture relaxed as if he'd been holding an invisible weight. Good. That's what we hoped to hear. When the meeting ended, I stepped outside onto the balcony walkway. The air was cool, fresh, and alive in a way Mercer Tech never felt. I stood there for a moment, letting the city hum around me. Then my phone buzzed again. This time the message came from an unknown number. I know where you are. We need to talk. T. I sighed. So predictable. 10 minutes later, I walked outside the building, and sure enough, Tara's car sat parked illegally by the curb. She stepped out, looking disheveled in a way I'd never seen. Her blazer was wrinkled, her hair slightly out of place, her eyes sharp with panic. You, she said, marching toward me, are going to fix this. No, I replied. You don't understand what you've done, she snapped. The company is falling apart. That's not my responsibility anymore. She grabbed my arm again, not forcefully, just desperately. Please, she said. Dad is furious. Investors are everywhere. The board is threatening changes. You have to come back. I stepped back from her. You wanted me suspended. This is the follow-up. That was different, she yelled. I didn't think you'd actually quit. I studied her closely. The panic wasn't about losing me. It was about losing the shield I'd unknowingly been for years. You pushed me out, I said. You lied. You sabotaged projects. You blamed me for everything wrong in your work. She swallowed. Dad believes me. He always has. Not for long, I said. Not when investors start asking why the only designer clients trusted is gone. She shook her head, stepping back. You're enjoying this. I met her eyes calmly. No, I'm just done protecting a system that never protected me. She stared at me, realization dawning slowly. You're going to let everything collapse. I'm not letting anything happen, I said. I just stopped holding up the part I never should have been carrying alone. Tara's shoulders sagged. You ruined us. I shook my head. You ruined yourselves. She stared at me another moment, and then, unexpectedly, she stepped forward, voice low. You think this ends here? You think walking away makes you untouchable? No, I said calmly. Walking away makes me free. She flinched like the words hit harder than anything physical. Then she turned, got into her car, and drove off. But I didn't miss the way her hands shook on the steering wheel. By late afternoon, I had returned to my office at Harrison and Brooke, ready to settle into work. I had ideas to sketch, a team to lead, and a future that suddenly looked wide open. But the day wasn't done. Not yet. At 4:30, Joshua knocked on my door. You have a visitor, he said. Didn't catch his name, tall guy, looked stressed. I frowned. Send him in. The door opened. Jonas stepped in. He looked pale, nervous, hands shoved deep in his pockets. I shouldn't be here, he said, but you need to know something. What now? He closed the door behind him. Franklin and Tara are planning something, a press release, blaming you for the drop. They want to frame your departure as the reason for the chaos. They're trying to protect the stock by making you the problem. I laughed softly. That's predictable. There's more, he said. They're meeting with an investor tonight. They want to show they're still in control, and they're going to drag your name into the conversation. I leaned back in my chair. Let them try. Jonas hesitated. Colin, they won't just talk. What do you mean? They're staging the meeting at the Mercer estate, he said. It's going to be dramatic. They want to make a statement, and they want you to show up. I raised an eyebrow. Me? Yes, they want to confront you in front of investors. Make it seem like you acted irrationally. Make themselves look like the reasonable ones. So they're setting the stage, I said quietly. Jonas nodded. I figured you'd want to know. I stood and grabbed my jacket. Where are you going? He asked. To give them a statement of my own. Because if they wanted a public confrontation, I'd give them one, just not the one they expected. This wasn't the end, not even close. It was the beginning of something they never saw coming. By the time the sky softened into early evening, I was already driving toward the Mercer estate. I wasn't heading there as a son or an employee or someone seeking closure. I was heading there as the person they underestimated for far too long. The calm inside me wasn't forced. It had settled naturally, like dust after a long renovation. Nothing felt chaotic. Everything felt placed exactly where it needed to be. The gates were open when I arrived, which was unusual. My father treated the estate like a fortress, closed off, guarded by motion sensors, cameras tucked into every corner of the property. Tonight, though, the gates stood wide, as if the estate itself anticipated the drama waiting inside. I parked near the main walkway, stepped out, and took in the familiar view. Manicured lawns, long stone steps, tall windows glowing with warm light from within. From the outside, the house looked peaceful. Inside, I knew better. I walked up the steps slowly, not rushing, not stalling. My father hated when people were late. Arriving exactly on time felt like the perfect way to set the tone. When I pushed open the front door, I heard voices immediately, sharp, tense, layered in a way that told me a storm had been building all afternoon. I stepped into the entry hall, and there they stood. Franklin, Tara, 2 board members, and an investor who looked like he regretted ever agreeing to be part of this little gathering. They all turned toward me at once. My father's expression froze in that tight, polished smile he used during interviews. Colin, he said, how excellent of you to join us. Was there a choice? I asked. He motioned toward the sitting room. Let's have a conversation. I followed them inside. The room looked staged, floral arrangements, untouched glasses of water, a tray of pastries that no one had touched. The investor sat closest to the coffee table, flipping through what looked like a printout of quarterly losses. Tara stood behind him, wringing her hands as if she could twist the numbers into better ones. Franklin gestured for me to sit. I stayed standing. This is a sensitive situation, he began. We need to discuss the challenges your abrupt departure created. Challenges? I repeated calmly. Which part created the most trouble, the resignation, or the part where 5 major accounts pulled support before lunch? A board member cleared his throat. Let's be respectful. I nodded. Absolutely. Respect is important. It's something I've offered this family for years. Franklin straightened, clearly irritated by my tone. Your sister has already explained the confusion that led to your suspension. Suspension? I repeated, raising a brow. You mean the moment I was told to apologize for her mistake? Tara stepped forward, voice sharp. I didn't make a mistake. I looked at the investor. Would you like to see the timeline she altered without telling the design department? The investor's eyes brightened. Yes. I reached into my bag and pulled out the folder I'd prepared earlier. I had printed everything neatly, curated specifically for this moment. I had documentation, time-stamped edits, email receipts, nothing dramatic, nothing invasive, just clear evidence of how disorganized their system had become. I laid the folder on the coffee table. Tara lunged for it, but I moved it slightly, causing her to lose her balance and bump into the edge of the sofa. Nothing harsh, nothing harmful, just enough to shift the attention more squarely onto her behavior. Careful, I said gently. The investor picked up the folder, flipping through it slowly. With each page, his expression tightened. After a few minutes, he set it down. So, he said calmly, turning to Franklin, your son didn't make these errors. Franklin tried to recover. There was miscommunication at multiple levels. No, I said. There was sabotage. Years of it. And yesterday was just the final drop. Tara's face twisted. You can't prove that. I don't need to, I said. Your actions today did it for me. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I stepped forward, addressing the investor directly. When I left, I didn't take anything that wasn't legally mine. I didn't harm your infrastructure. I didn't speak negatively of Mercer Tech to any clients. They left on their own because they trusted me, not the name. The investor nodded slowly. I see that clearly now. My father's jaw tightened. We can fix this. We can bring Colin back and regain stability. I'm not coming back, I said. The room froze. Tara gasped softly, like the sound of a balloon stretching too far. The board members exchanged glances. The investor sat straighter, and Franklin's polished smile cracked at the edges. You're making a mistake, he said. No, I said. I'm making a decision. And what decision is that? He demanded. I've signed with another firm. Tara's face drained of color. You what? At noon, I said. It's finalized. But you can't. I can, I said. I did. Franklin's temper surfaced. That company cannot offer what we can. Mercer Tech built your reputation. No, I said calmly. I built my reputation. Mercer Tech benefited from it. The silence that followed wasn't dramatic or heavy. It was simply honest. What do you want? Franklin asked suddenly, lowering his voice. Name it. Nothing, I said. Not a position, not an apology, not a negotiation. He stared at me, genuinely confused. Then why come here? Because you planned to use me as a shield tonight, I said. You wanted to blame me in front of investors so you wouldn't have to admit your own errors. I thought it was better to address that directly. The investor nodded. Thank you for coming, Colin. That was enlightening. I gave him a polite nod and turned toward the door. But before I could walk out, Franklin stepped in front of me. I'm not finished. I am, I said. You think you're walking away clean? He demanded. You think the company will survive without you? I met his stare evenly. That's not my concern. Tara stepped closer, voice trembling. I didn't mean for this to go so far. You pushed me out, I said. Everything after was a natural result. You ruined everything, she whispered. No, I said. You ruined your own foundation. I just stopped trying to hold it steady. I stepped around them and walked out of the room. They didn't follow. Outside, the air felt clearer than it had inside. I walked down the front steps toward the driveway, fully ready to leave the estate behind for good, but as I passed the row of luxury vehicles parked there, each polished to perfection like prized ornaments, I stopped beside my father's most treasured possession, the vintage car he kept in a glass-walled garage, the one he refused to let anyone else drive, the one he cared for more than the memories of his own family. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my keys, and dragged one firmly across the side of the car's flawless surface. The sound was soft, steady, unmistakable. A single line, deliberate and clean, not damaging, not harmful, just symbolic. A reminder carved in metal instead of words. When I turned back toward the house, I saw them standing at the window, Franklin, Tara, and the investor behind them. Their faces were a mix of confusion, disbelief, and realization. They didn't move. They just watched. I didn't wave. I didn't smirk. I didn't acknowledge them beyond a brief glance. I simply walked to my car, opened the door, and sat inside. For a moment, I rested my hands on the steering wheel, feeling the warmth from the sun still lingering on it. Then I started the engine and pulled out of the driveway, leaving the estate shrinking in the rearview mirror. All their expectations, all their assumptions, all their misplaced confidence, they stayed behind on that property. Ahead of me was a new version of life, a version I'd crafted by choice, not obligation, a version untouched by manipulation or forced loyalty. As the estate disappeared completely from view, I allowed one final thought. They'd spent years shaping the narrative of who I was supposed to be. It was time they faced the truth of who I actually was. They wanted a lesson. They got one. And that was the end of it.